courtesy of the red, white, and blue.
It's time for Veterans Issues, the show that brings you information about veterans, military, and their family. Now here's your host, Ken Rollins.
Welcome into Veterans Issues. Ken Rollins here, and I appreciate you tuning in this week. Got a very special guest I think you're going to like. You'll need that pen today, but this guy you just want to sit back and listen to. He's a World War II veteran. He's an ex-prisoner of war, and his name is George Waters, and we'll be right back to talk with Mr. Waters. Stay where you are. Be right back.
Go.
Welcome back. Ken Rollins here, and my guest today is George Waters. I got to stop that. His name is Truman Waters, George Truman Waters, and he wants to be known by Truman because that's what people call him, but I'm going to call him George. Welcome to the shore, George.
It's
Mr.
good
Waters,
to be here.
Mr. Waters. It's good to be anywhere at it.
It sure is.
Okay.
Absolutely.
First thing I want to do is I want the people to know a little bit of something about George T. Waters. Is that the way it is?
That's
George?
the way it is. That's
Right.
my official deal.
Okay.
It had to be George T. Anything that
I hear you. Well, we in this region that we're in East Alabama, Northeast Alabama. Where are you from locally?
I'm from Randolph County, just a mile south of the Cleveland County line, over at Marston's Chapel.
No, we're exactly where it is.
That's on 29.
Okay, so they would be called that as Heflin. That'd be your address.
Heflin's the address.
Okay, and we're here today. You're here today as a World War II veteran of the greatest generation, and an ex-prisoner of war. We're going to get into that, but I want to go back. You went into service at some time. Did you go in from Alabama?
I was drafted and entered the service out here at Fort McClellan in 1941. In July.
You got that letter? Uncle Sam wants you.
Congratulations.
Okay. And you went there, what year was that?
That's 1941.
Wow.
No, excuse me. It's 1942.
Okay. Wow.
Mixed up here a little bit.
And you went there to Fort McClellan, and then where'd you serve around?
I went from Fort McClellan to Fort McPherson the same day that I was sworn in at Fort McClellan, got on troop train and wound up at Fort McPherson that night.
And well, that was getting close to wartime, so.
Oh, it was absolutely wartime, big time, because that was 6 months after Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, that's the first time I'd met my wife's family. I had lunch with her at her home on Sunday when Pearl Harbor was bombed.
Well, where was she from?
She's from Munford.
Munford.
Yeah, we was both of us working here in Anniston at the time.
I always put a T in Munford.
Well, that's good.
Just to make people mad. They said, it ain't no T in Munford. Well, so you met your wife, and then you was over at Fort McPherson. Then where did you go from there?
I went from there to Miami Beach, Florida.
Well, you're rascal.
That's where I went into my brief training that I got.
Brief, I think.
It was brief, but I had time to do 1 day of KP, and when they say a day of KP, they mean a day.
They do.
And that was the only day of KP I ever had to pull in the service. This men on is doing something else.
Well, I see people out there watching. Some of them don't know what KP is. That's kitchen police, but that's the dirtiest work you'll ever do.
That's right.
You had pots and pans you had to clean.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Lord, I didn't
even
think about it.
It was a long day, about 3 o'clock in the morning till about 10 that night.
You just brought back bad memories this old boy. Yeah. So you went, now when, at some point you shipped out overseas?
Yeah,
from Miami?
I went from there to Boston, Massachusetts, and I went through gunner school, not gunner school, but aircraft mechanic school.
Fort Devens?
No, it was New England Aircraft School.
Okay.
And that was a civilian school to be an aircraft mechanic. Then from there I shipped to Texas and then to Kansas, and I was instructor as a aircraft mechanic for a while.
Okay.
And it seemed like that was not exactly what I needed to do, but I didn't know what it was I needed to do. But they had a big push on for people to go to gunnery school. It would anybody that step out of ranks to go to gunnery school, step forward.
What was the prominent plane back then that you maintenance on?
Well,
they had a bunch of them, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, this school was for any plane. It was just general aircraft mechanic.
Okay.
It was the engine and how the propeller works and the wings and the whole plane. Whatever plane is going to be out there, it was general knowledge. They were all propeller planes at that time. There was no such thing as jets. And if you got the basics of an aircraft engine, well, you had the basics for all of them.
You didn't spray nothing inside them planes to make them people want to jump out of them like they do in paratroopers or stuff, did you?
Oh no, that had nothing to do with that.
I always thought they had to be some kind of crazy gas going on there because
the only work that I ever did as far as mechanics was concerned was an instructor. I was an aircraft propeller instructor for a while, and then after I got stepped forward to go to gunnery school, well, that's when I went to Las Vegas, Nevada, and went through gunnery school there, and then
now the gunnery school, that the gunnery on the plane itself?
Yes.
You're not talking about artillery, you're talking about...
No, it's all aircraft.
Okay.
It goes from air rifles, 22 rifles, shotguns, shooting skeet, small arms, and some it's not small, like 50 caliber machine gun.
I hear you.
And you go through all that, and then you went through Salt Lake City up to Washington State, and that's where the crew was formed. And from there, we went by troop train over to Virginia, and from there, a troop ship landed in Casablanca. And that was just like a storybook.
You rascal, you.
That was a third grade geography.
Did you see Frank Sinatra there?
I didn't see him, but he could have been there.
I hear you. So at some point, you went, when you went overseas, was you a gunner then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And I knew the position I was going to fly on the plane at that time, and but I had never been in anything except training. And the training we got in Washington State, since I'd been to aircraft mechanic school, I was an engineer that was on the planes for different pilots and co-pilots that come in that never been on a 4-engine bomber. And I was the engineer on the plane to explain different things, or how the plane and the 4 engines worked, generators and all the different things the plane had on it. And we'd fly for the first time. They'd take off, and I'd watch the instruments and they'd point out things to them that they had to watch out for.
While I'm thinking about it, have you done any flying since you got out of the service?
Oh yeah, but not.
I mean, just riding on
commercial flying is all.
You have a tendency to want to get up there and tell them how to fix that thing?
No, I don't have. That's out of my category completely. These jets, I mean, that's all. It's altogether different.
All right,
but I have thought about. I've been in flights. I've done quite a bit of. I've been on commercial planes quite a bit in some rough weather, and I thought, man, I really need a chute on here. If this thing goes down, I don't want to ride it down.
But did you, at some point, you got into the conflict area where there was a war going on?
Absolutely.
Is that when you did it, when you was flying over from?
Well, I went from Casablanca by troop train over to Tunis through the Atlas Mountains on one of those 40-8s.
All right, I want to stay there because they're telling me that I got a couple of seconds left.
Okay.
Where were we on the troop train to where?
From Casablanca to Tunis.
All right, that's where I want to pick up, Casablanca, and come back. Told you it's going to be interesting, didn't I? Stay where you are, come back. Got more with George Waters. Truman Waters. Welcome back in. I'm talking with Truman Waters. He's a World War II veteran, ex-prisoner of war. We're going to get into that right now, and we left you in Casablanca. George, I'm still not going to call you Truman.
That's all right. It don't matter. I'm used to both. So.
Anyhow, you was in Casablanca. I'm trying to get you now over to overseas where you became a prisoner of war, but I want you to take me there. How you?
There's so much that happened for that week going from Casablanca to Tunis.
But this is family television, so we can't talk about it.
And then at Tunis, I got a plane, C-47, and the whole crew was on the plane, and we went to Sicily. And I had lunch at Sicily, then on up to Naples. And from Naples, of course, we spent the night at Naples. And from Naples over to Foggia, Italy. And that's where our crew was introduced to the 15th Air Force. And that's where I did all my missions, 25 missions, before I shot down. And different crews I flew because I was a ball turret gunner, and they were short of ball turret gunners. Nobody wanted that position. So I flew with many crews. I had 25 missions before I shot down. And that was the day I shot down. And
Like that 15th?
yeah, that's it.
That's your outfit?
That's the outfit.
How about this patch here?
That's the patch. We're on our shoulders.
How about that?
That's I
There's
hadn't seen one in a while.
It's a friend of ours, mine, yours. Wanted me to give you that today.
Well, thank
When
you.
you said the 15th, that's what
I
decided to
appreciate
do.
that. Yeah, that.
And before we get too far into the show, he also wanted me to give you this. This is your 50th anniversary of that war. So
My goodness.
So
that
see
is
what
really
you get for
something.
coming down here on Veterans.
Oh man.
All right, so we'll get that out of the way.
I got to make lots of trips down here.
I think you probably know who the fella is that got me that, but we won't worry about it. No, it's the car.
Okay.
But anyhow, you was on the 15th. That's when they got introduced. When your guys got introduced to the bad guys.
And then all the guys come in telling us about what combat was like, and you got to dig a foxhole because they're liable to bomb at any time. And all this stuff I'm telling you now has got more
we're in
to
fast.
it than
Yeah,
that.
we're in
But anyway,
fast
we
forward.
go on and fly in all different countries. You know, I don't know how many oak leaf clusters from different combat zones.
Yeah.
Southern France, and
What was your rank then?
I was staff sergeant.
Staff sergeant. Okay.
And then the mission I shot down on was my 25th mission, and that was a longie, right from Foggia to Regensburg, Germany, and that was going to be looked like it was going to be a 11-hour flight there and back. We dropped our bombs and everything just went storybook fashion, you know, just perfect. We got some flak that's close by, big stuff, bigger than I was used to, coming through the clouds and accurate. Well, I could see planes are taking off from the ground. They're not to be worried about. We're too far. We're in formation of going home. They can't do anything with us. This many guns against them, they're just wasting their time. About that time, number 3 engine went out, and it's just, so much vibration, jar your teeth out almost. And I called to the pilot. I said, "What in the?" I could see that from where I was in the ball turret under the plane, I could see the prop was windmilling. It stopped doing its thing, and that was what was vibrating the plane. They couldn't feather the prop. And we couldn't keep up with the formation, so we fell out of formation. We just barely were staying in the air, and all of a sudden, here comes two fighters in. Of course, I didn't know there's but one, but after we got on the ground, I realized from the other crew that made it out that there's 2 fighters, one 2 o'clock high and one 6 o'clock coming in on us. And I began to see chutes coming by, and I thought I'd stayed in that turret too long. I ain't gonna be able to get out of here. The plane was just a cutting didos, I call it.
Yeah.
Because part of the time it seemed like I weighed a ton. My jaws was going down into my shoulders, but I managed to swing the gun around and lower it, and I could see that the radio operator's holding to his desk, bent over, and I throwed that hatch back, and I got the chute on. Went back through the waist, and I was walking through blood all the way back through there. Pulled the emergency cord and jumped. And when I got on the ground, that was one happy time. I didn't care if I was in Germany or Timbuktu or where I was in. I don't know if I was in Germany or in Austria. I was along the line somewhere in there because we was about 15 minutes off the target, and I didn't know where we'd crossed. But dumb me, they took me to the burgomaster, the mayor's office, and I said, am I in Germany or Austria? He said, Germany, Austria, what's the difference? All the same. I didn't realize, when they conquered a place, that's part of Germany.
Germany, France, Italy.
And
so you became a prisoner of war at that time.
That's right. And then I sat there in his office with other people in there, civilians, and here come the Army, 3 guys in, took me out.
German Army.
Yeah, it's German soldiers, Air Force guys. Mm-hmm. And they took me to the commander's office, the Air Force base there, not far. I would guess it's about 3-mile walk that we had from there to the base. And got about halfway to the base, and we was on a little arch bridge. And I was looking down at the water, and this Jeep drove up. A German officer got out, came up to where I was and says, "What shot you down, flak or fighters?" I made out like he couldn't speak English enough for me to understand, because I didn't know how to answer him, or I didn't want to answer him correctly, I didn't want him to know which shot me down. And I don't quite he knew he could speak good English. He says, "I ask you a question. What shot you down, flak or fighters?" And I says, "Engine failure." And man, I was afraid he was going to throw me over that bridge.
You're a troublemaker,
but he got in his Jeep, took off, and they marched me on to the base. And I got to the base, and the commanding officer, now I don't know if this is real or fiction, but he told me his name was Waters. But he didn't tell any other crew that his name was Waters. But he said, "I've got the same name you did. It's in German." He says, we pronounce it Wasser, but says it's Waters. And we had a long conversation. Of course, I'm sure he's interrogating me.
Yeah.
But I wasn't thinking of it in those terms then. I was just looking for a friendly voice.
I hear you. So that was you injured or anything when you fell?
I was the only man on the crew that didn't get some kind of injury.
I'll be darned.
I had my clothes practically tore off of me getting out of that ball turret, and I had on a heated suit underneath the summer coveralls that I had on. I was the only one on the plane that had a heated suit.
Normally at this point the show would be over and we'd go to the news that you can use. I'm going to dedicate that time to you. We got to go to a break. Come back. We're going to take about that suit. I want to get on that march that you was on before we get out of here.
Okay.
Come back. We got to. I'm not going to use. You can use. I got more of George Waters. Stay where you are. Truman Waters. Be right back. Welcome back. We're talking Truman Waters, World War II veteran and ex-prisoner of war. Now we were just about to get into that part where he was come out of the plane and he was being interrogated, and now at the point you were talking about there, I want to get on this march where you went and ended up in the internment camp.
Well, now this is fast forward 1 year.
Real fast,
Now there's a lot happening that year up to now. But anyway,
that's for the next 3, 4, and 5 shows that we do down the road.
Okay, that's good. I'll be ready to come back. But on this particular morning, it was 6th day of February. They told us the night before, says we're going to be marching out of here. We thought we was going to be staying there and we was going to get liberated by the Russians. The Russians were pushing like mad toward us. We had information. We were getting information. Anyway, that next morning it was cold and there's ice all over everything. It's foggy. It's just as rough a morning as you can imagine. They throw a Red Cross parcel at each one of us. We had to grab it and start walking. And some of the guys would slip and fall on that ice, getting away from there. And way up in the morning, we came on. This was the beginning of this 3 months march that I'm talking about. We wouldn't be in another camp at the rest of the war from February to May. And we'd opened up our parcels and was eating our food, and then had to button up everything and get moving again. Each one of us had a little pack that we'd made out of a shirt or anything we could find to put stuff in, so we'd keep going on the road. And it took a while to learn how to walk. When you'd start up a hill, everybody would have to stop because one's in front, one walking as fast. Start down a hill, that's when everybody start falling on that ice. And it went on day after day. And I remember one particular day, the 13th day of February, we slept out in the open on top of the snow. And 3 of us guys got our blankets together. Each had a blanket apiece. We found out we need to put 4 of the blankets. That we had 6. The 3 double is 6. We had 4 unders and 2 overs because you needed more under to keep you warm than you did over you. That cold had come up through there.
Yeah. Well, we're going to run out of time, but I want to get to the part when you were liberated, too, if we got time.
Yeah.
How did you remember that day?
That day the war was over. Hitler committed suicide, and was the English that came in, or one English guy on a motorcycle called to his boss back somewhere and says, I've got a bunch of blokes says I've got Germans under every bush and I don't know what to do with them. Now I've run up on a group of prisoners, ex-prisoners of war. What am I going to do? He says have them line up in columns of 4 and have the guards be in front, and first have the guards put all their ammunition and guns in a neat pile out the side of the road and get everybody marching away from the front. We could hear the guns, rat-a-tat-tat-tat, and that's the way we started out, but it didn't last long. Ranks was broken, and pilfering went on, and all that kind of stuff. And I'd had a piece of cheese, and I had this, that, and the other, and to eat that people had found somewhere,
Scrounger.
Yeah, and finally, this guy in a van, one of these little van-like things, was sitting on the side of the road making tea by himself. Had a fire going, and I'd seen some candy bars being thrown from a van like he had. So he gave me a bunch of them.
They're telling me out of town and out of time.
Okay.
Mr. Waters, I want you to know it's been an honor having you on the show today. And will you come back?
I'll come back whenever you say.
We got about 3 or 4 more shows today. We got to go. I do appreciate him. And this, folks, is what World War II. This is your greatest generation. This is a real, genuine, true hero. And I've been honored to have him on the show today. We'll see you next week here on Veterans Issues. And my salute this week goes to George Truman Waters. Salute.